The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
The West Tigers podcast, and it is the last post-match edition of the West Tigers podcast for the season 2025, and unfortunately it was an 8-point loss to the Titans, 36-28 being the final score. I've got some one-word contributions of my own, and I've got all of the one-word contributions from the West Tigers podcast forum, but let's see what the boys have to say. Declan's here, Zach's here, and Nick is here. We'll start with Declan. We'll break tradition a little bit. Declan, what have you got for us for your one word, please, out of the final game of the year?
I'm floating between soft and disappointing. I think that we didn't come up to the Gold Coast with like the necessary mindset to be physical in defence, and we kind of like just relied on our attack, and we weren't really willing to kind of like go set for set like we have been pretty good at this entire season with the team. It just seemed like once the Titans kind of like got ahead, or like when they started getting the ball, I didn't really see much desire or much like willingness to kind of do the hard stuff, which is understandable because as the last game of the season, it was a nothing game. But at the same time, it's still incredibly disappointing because now those kind of things are lingering in the back of your mind going into next season. Like, all right, like, how is this team going to look defensively next year? Like, can we bring that physicality week in, week out that we saw against the Raiders? And like from what I've seen so far, towards the end of the season, it's going to be a difficult one to match the intensity every week because we just weren't able to like pull the game back once the Titans got a lot of possession and a lot of territory.
Yeah, I want to sort of expand on that a little bit in a moment or two, which is, you know, if you win a game, the last game of the season, sometimes it might paper over and make you look a little bit better than you are. So maybe we've been exposed to our reality a bit more. We'll go to Zach next. Hey, Zach, what's your one word, please?
Hey, fellas, mine's expected. And is there anything more surprising than losing a game to the last place Titans at the end of the season when we had no excuse to and we're in relatively good form? It's expected. I mean, that's just what this side does. I spoke last week about whether or not we've turned a number of corners over the course of the year, and I think half of them we have and half of them we haven't. And being able to win games we should win and not become complacent is definitely something we haven't turned yet. So, yeah, look, not at all to say that it wasn't extremely disappointing, but, yeah, if I was to say that it wasn't expected, I'd be lying.
Expected, soft. I'm going to pick out complacent out of Zach's words there. Nick, what do you got for us?
My word, Joel, is tide, T-I-D-E, or perhaps tidal, because the West Tigers remind me of a team that sort of ebbs and flows like the ocean as it drifts into the sand and then goes back out to sea and you don't see them for a while. So just the way that we I honestly thought we dominated the first 20 minutes of that game against the Titans. We were looking pretty sharp, got off to a quick 10-0 lead. Before you know it, we sort of let Gold Coast back in. They get some momentum and nudge in front. And then all of a sudden, Royce Hunt comes on and bang, bang, a couple of tries and got the game under control. And then, as we all know, we just went to sleep. The tide went way, way out to sea and has never been seen again. So, title, Joel.
And if you've ever been around any mangroves, you'll remember that they do smell, and that sort of sums up some of our performances as well. The low tide around the mangroves. My words, I've got, in the first half, so just echoing further on your thoughts there, Nick, I've actually written down free in that I thought we played, especially if you contrast this team at the end of the year compared to earlier in the season where I thought they were uptight and sort of not free-flowing and very careful and very cautious. Like they looked free. They looked what's the word that I'm looking for? They've been taken off the leash. They were able to run wild and run free, and it looked really, really good. I thought, this is fantastic. We're heading in the right direction. Second half, flat. I just thought we looked flat. And I've got classic, so sort of classic West Tigers moment. Declan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just think that as soon as I saw that like Cara Gordon was named in the centres to play for them, his first grade game of the season, I think he'd only played like three Queensland Cup games at halfback. So if you see that and you see that Taylor and May's marking him, then that's just a matchup like dream for us and a nightmare for them. And like the first half, all our left edge, we just looked incredible coming out of yardage and
Mm.
attacking the 20. Like we just absolutely killed them. And that's the most disappointing thing for me because I don't think we went there once again in the second half, like when we had like any sort of ball whatsoever. So we had a clear advantage, but we just like went away from it and like we just couldn't get a game plan in place to get Taylor one on one with Carter Gordon again. And that's just so frustrating. And it was the exact same as the Cowboys game where we were just killing them down our left edge, but
Mm.
then we were leaking points on our right edge. So just, yeah, just really
That was
disappointing.
that was the point I was going to make, Declan, just off the back of what you're saying there, is the Titans did exactly what the Cowboys did exactly what we haven't been able to do, which is target areas of weakness in the opposition, but around particular sides and use it as a proof of concept to keep hammering that side. The Titans scored 5 tries on our right on the weekend. 5. And I know there's mitigating circumstances, and I know no one of them was off the back of a Tino catch and flick or whatever else. But to your point, the matchups on that other side for us on our left-hand side looked mouth-watering.
Mm.
And when we did go there, particularly early, we had some fruit through Sam Weller and whatnot. So, um, yeah, I think a lot of it speaks to, I don't necessarily want to say from a coaching standpoint, but in a lot of ways, we were outcoached in both of those, and our ability or inability to use our advantages, which I guess you could understand in a fledgling team, is something we've still got to learn.
So the Titans quick play the ball. They were just so intent on quick play the ball that they even stuffed it up a couple of times, trying to do it just so quickly, spearing in behind the ruck and better line speed than us during the game. But if you ask me, Nick, after half an hour, what my word is likely to be, because I'm formulating these, as I'm sure everybody does during the game, like thinking, what is this word going to be? My word after half an hour would have been nightmare in that we're giving the Titans their right edge nightmares. Our left looks so slick, but then our right was so poor, including one stat that I saw Sione Fainu playing over on that right side. He had probably his worst game of the season. He missed 9 tackles. So it was a tale not only of two halves, but of two halves of the field, two sides of the field.
Yeah, I did message a mate of mine, a fellow Tigers fan, during the game on how sharp our left edge looked during that first half when we were clicking, and it's not far off being a polished, end result. So like it's looking that good. I love what Taylor May brings. He's so good, but yeah, when you flip it and you look at the right side, and it bloody frustrates me. Stafford Toa, like he showed when he was playing, I guess for a contract, what he can do, and at his best, he's close to the best center in the club. But when he's not at his best, he can be pretty ordinary.
Mm.
And he just loses that impact. He loses that punch. When he was having those few good games, only a couple of months ago, his attacking runs, he was not just fending off players, he was like, pushing them into oblivion. He was looking really, really dangerous and really strong, but I don't know where he's gone. I know we've spoken about perhaps that ties back with when he injured his arm. Might have been that Dragons game, I can't remember now, but
Mm.
yeah, that's sort of fallen off a bit, and that's definitely a side of the field that we need to improve on going into next season.
I think the thing with Starford is that having Taylor May on the other side of the field, you see kind of all the things that Starford isn't good at much more clearly. Because like we all talk about how good Taylor is with the ball, but he made some really good defensive reads as well in that game. I think there was one he made on, there was a try saver he made on Randall. I know the Titans scored off that set, but they could have scored if like Taylor didn't make that last desperate tackle. And that's just something that Starford doesn't have in his game consistently enough. And there was also that Tino jump that led to that try. I think Starford should have been the one to get up and contest that ball or put some sort of pressure. But him and Mason both kind of like looked at each other, kind of like, well, you need to like you do something, you do something. And then like the fact that neither of them did anything, it just gave Tino like a clear run of the ball, which led to a try. And Brimson just got on the outside of him like far too much. And like I'm mitigating the fact of that is that obviously the Titans were running downhill at that point. So there is, like, I do feel a little bit bad for him in that regard. But like he's just low key really bad defensively when like he's not in form. I'm not sure if it's the fact that he's injured or He just he's not getting a lot of ball now, so he's not getting like a feel for the game maybe because everything's going down the left. But like it's just something that needs to be addressed because we've all got him penciled in for next year to start at right centre, but you just need your first grade players to be more consistent than that. And there was a few guys who cracked under the pressure when the Titans had all that momentum, and I think that's a real eye opener for next season for me.
I think the other thing as well with May doing so well on that left-hand side and that left-hand side looking more and more complete on both sides of the football is we're seeing sides just in recent times. We've only got a small sample size. We're seeing sides go down our right more, I think. So they've obviously spotted a few deficiencies a month or two back, and sides are seeing that and they're doing more and more tape. And the Cowboys did it to us, and then obviously the Titans have watched what happened with the Cowboys. You then add to that the fact that we've had Sionis come into that side in moments, but then gets pulled out of that side to then play in the middle at certain points throughout the game. You got Latu, who was doing a relatively good job defending in there, and then you have Heath Mason come in, with due respect to Heath, who is all at sea. So then Stafford's trying to then he's got a different second rower coming inside, and then all of a sudden he's got a different half inside of him, and trying to make those decisions as well. And then you got somebody opposite you in AJ Brimson, where if you make a split second and he's on, he burns you. And unfortunately, the matchup being what it was, that's exactly what it was. Sometimes Toe was sitting too tight, and at other times he was laying back a bit too much, and they got around us. So I looking ahead to next year, just to put a bow on it, I think that once we actually get a bit of solidarity around what that right looks like, that will make a big difference. Because I think they have been playing around with it, and there've been injuries, and you mentioned the elbow to Toa and whatnot. Once you've got the likes of, let's say it's KPP, Latu Fainu, and then even if it's a Toa and a Taruva, they can spend some time, get some reps in the tank. And then hopefully some of those combinations can improve off the back of that. Because early season, I thought defensively Star and Sania looked quite good.
Yeah, I think the injury to Stafford, it has to be a factor because his form has changed significantly since he did that injury for sure. Declan.
Yeah, obviously we don't know about the injury, but for me, Stafford, he looks like he's more willing to like put his hand up defensively when he's getting those kind of like attacking stats and highlight plays to feed his confidence and his involvement in the game. So maybe like the fact that he was getting so much ball on the right side and he was full of confidence and he was getting all the praise and him and Trevor were killing it, that kind of made him more willing to like engage in the tougher stuff because like I obviously I want to stress I don't know the injury, so I don't want to go too hard on him. But I thought particularly against Penrith the second time we played them, I saw probably an unwillingness to play physically on that edge, which really cost us. So I'm not sure, and it is a bit frustrating because we did re-sign him, so we've got him long term, and he's so talented. I think none of us doubt like how talented he is, and if he's on, he's probably like one of the better centres in the comp, and it's just a shame that we haven't really seen that the second half of the year.
It is a headache for Benji, isn't it, when you think about, I guess, not just the right side, but the back line in general, because we saw Hamasi yesterday make his debut. He did nothing wrong, and he impressed me from an 18-year-old's perspective, walking out of school, backpack off, uniform, straight in the laundry basket, straight into the NRL field, scoring on debut. I mean, what a start that was to his career, but I know he played on the left yesterday, and we're talking about Star on the right. You got Taruba on the right. You got Skelton that was out yesterday. Like, how do you fit them all in? Like, Makasini, do you walk him into round one next season? And I guess it all depends on preseason. And we know what Benji's mentality is. If you're good enough, you're old enough. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens during the preseason. I can't wait to watch more of Makasini next year. What I saw yesterday got me a bit excited.
Yeah, we will talk about Makasini shortly. Lots to talk about there. Let's have a look at the one-word submissions from the West Tigers podcast forum. Kiwi Tigers' word was barley, saying that, that's where the players' minds were. They were already in barley. Dirty Red's word was garbage. We don't need to explain that. Tigersman's word was let down. There was a lot to like in the first half, a lot to dislike in the second half. Tiger Town SFS, finally. And I'm presuming that Tiger Town SFS means season over, finally. But, I mean, compared to the last few years, it hasn't been that bad, has it, Tiger Town SFS? It's been, reasonably a little bit of enjoyment. Mr. Anonymous 26 went with 3 words: leadership, organisation, and intensity. Intensity for 80 minutes. Tiger's Eye, captain's knock. We needed one from Luai and we didn't get it. Snake's word was realisation. Just the realisation that it is a bog average team. London Tigers' word was brittle. Osmo's 7, shame. Shame our season ended like this. Jedi Tiger went for Mason. Played 7 games this year. We lost all of them. Tiger 5150, settled. Let there be more talk of AD or Jock Madden at 7. Mike's word was devastated, and the Richo meter has swung down to poor. LFC Tigers' word was typical. Such a West Tigers performance. NatMax78 said, it's Tigers. That's what we're renowned for. Tiger Stew's word was 2026. Nothing will change. And lastly, Mac Tiger, their word was respect. We needed to respect the opposition. Zach, I think we lost that game in the 38th minute when Latu Fainu slipped through. Regan Campbell-Gillard gave him a mile, and he just went through like a hot knife through butter. And I think we thought, well, that's it. Put the cue in the rack. The job is done. And the Gold Coast had other ideas.
The best example of that is I did for probably the first time in
You breathed.
maybe years. Yeah, I relaxed. I'm never relaxed in West Tigers games, and for good reason. And that was I reflected back on that a bit later, and so as disappointed as I was, I could get it, but yeah, they never came out of the sheds. Yeah, the moment they were 28-12 up, the game was won. There was not much happening, and it just so happened that Gold Coast found something. Had Gold Coast come out with the same attitude, we'd probably bumble and stumble over the line by 10, 12 points, if not more. But yeah, again, poor, but not the end of the world, even though at the time, the 2 points, it's a win we needed. I think the club needed in a lot of ways, just morally, to get to 10 victories would have been nice. I don't know if we would have stayed ahead of Parramatta in the end after their flogging that they put on, but that one, I think we 1 point up, maybe at 12th or whatnot. But yeah, overall, it's not the end of the world, but I hope that that's a way of us getting that rubbish out of our system in 2025. Leave those sorts of lessons in 25, and at least that's not a learning experience we have to have, hopefully, in the first month or two next season.
I mean, I know I've come out pretty negative about this game, and yeah, I think it has a huge way to end the season. It's really disappointing, but at the same time, I think it just kind of shows you just how crucial momentum is in rugby league now. Because if you look at Penrith, actually went up there a few weeks ago, and if it wasn't for like a really bad, dodgy ref decision, like they probably lose. And plus, like a really classy, 2-point field goal from Nathan Cleary that kind of pulls them at the last minute out of trouble. So, like the Titans can score tries, and we definitely played into their hands. It just became a real unstructured, loose game where we didn't really have the kind of like firepower to go back at them. But yeah, I'm a bit conflicted because on one hand, it's kind of a nothing game. Like we didn't really have anything to play for. But on the other hand, like it is good to finish the year, get to 10 wins, and then just like have positive feelings going into next year. But yeah, it's a confusing one.
The thing for me, a week ago, I was saying to a few people, this is the biggest game of our season. Because for me, it was season defining how we finished the year off, especially after the last handful of seasons that we've had, where we've had dismal performances being pumped by huge scorelines. And for me, look, like you're saying, Zach, getting to 10 wins would have been a huge milestone, and I completely agree. I think just finishing on a positive note after what we've endured the last, 5 or 6 seasons would have been the premium for me. The way that we finished those last sort of 16 minutes, I've got it written down. We lost 18-0 in the last 16 minutes to lose that game against the Titans. We did the same thing against the Cowboys at Leichhardt. We lost 18-0 in the last 15 minutes to lose by 6 points. Like, this is just a stinker of a way to finish off the season. That's an ugly full stop. To go into the boys sitting down at Mad Monday, they're probably not thinking about the game. I know Benji would be, but the players are probably having a great time having a few beverages today, and if they're still awake at 8 p.m. on Monday night. But yeah, it's just an ugly way to finish, and unfortunately, that's now going to carry across into preseason. And if we had won, it's so much more of a positive light to go into 2026 season. But yeah, just a real shame. The tide's gone out, Joel, and the mangroves stink.
Reminiscent of that Cowboys game, as Nick says, Zach, in that, Naden moved into the halves and got caught out defensively later in that game when the Cowboys got the ascendancy. It was Mason this week. They were losing a halfback at some point during the game. There was a lot of similarities between those two games. But the other thing that you've got to suggest is like every team in the NRL has strike and speed and strike. And if you give them the ball and they get enough momentum, they get enough time with the ball, they score points. That seems to be. They just aren't really shockingly horrible teams. I mean, even Newcastle, who's finished last, finished really poorly. I'm not saying that, but they've been mostly competitive this year. So it's just the nature of the game, isn't it? You got to just be on your game every week for 80 minutes.
Yeah, you can't lapse. Those injuries to Latu, I think it was concussion in the Cowboys game. Um, do, you, they had an impact, and we can sit there and make excuses, and we can say that we simply need to be better, and we probably do. If we're going to bring in the likes of a Naden or a Mason or whatever the case may be in those scenarios, though, it behooves the club and Richo by extension to be able to have people who are better equipped to step into those roles in those positions so that the cohesiveness of that defensive line isn't left as susceptible as it is. It's all well and good for us to say, come on and go out there, Heath, and you guys just get it done, just keep them out. But I'll refer back to that cohesiveness I spoke about earlier. These types of factors do come into play, I think, and you can even, like I said, you can parlay that into a depth discussion and say, okay, are we going to be better equipped for that next year, for example? Or are we looking at the same names in the same positions? And are we going to find ourselves in similar positions if we do have a half go down or a centre go down or whatever the case may be? Because we've shown, or the players that we've been able to call on have shown now in recent times that you're only as strong as your weakest link, and if that's who we need to carry, and we will need to call on them in a war of attrition over the course of any given season, then we need to make sure we're better equipped to handle that because, we can't have the wall broken through that easily. You win no football games.
Yeah, which really in a roundabout kind of way, what you're saying is exactly what you often say, which is, our roster, once you get past player 15 or 16, it starts to become slim pickings. And, sometimes that's the difference in a few games.
Yep.
And I think that's been the case the last 3 weeks. Because, Declan, I would say one thing that the last 3 West Tigers performances have all shown is that we're a pretty good football team for 60 minutes. We've got to around that 60-minute point, and that last 20 minutes just haven't been able to go. We've dropped our lollies. We haven't been able to keep it up through the game. How do we change that next year? I mean, I know Kai Pearce-Paul is a right side specialist. He'll be no doubt a good addition to the back row. But it is a bit of a worry that it seems to be, another hurdle that we need to jump up.
Yeah, I mean, like just on Heath Mason, as soon as he came on to play six, it was like in football when like the manager substitutes a midfielder or a striker with another defender, and you just get the message like, oh, we're just going to defend away. We're not going to score another point here. We just kind of have to defend our way to victory here because you just knew that he just wasn't really going to like add anything in attack and I don't want to be like too critical on him, but you could even tell like when he came on and he like did a run, and I don't think that the second row kind of did what he wanted to, and he was just kind of looking at him like the communication just wasn't there, and then it kind of all fell on Luai, and then obviously the Titans knew that, so he was under much more pressure to do something. So yeah, but how do you fix it? Well, I think you just need more depth. Like we need more first grade quality depth, especially in that bench. Like we need better middles. I think Jock Madden, I think he is better in terms of like a backup 7 than what we have right now. And then obviously Adam Dewey's injured now as well. So we lost Dewey, like Latu went off injured. So it wasn't like, we had like one injury, then we looked kind of lost. We did have that, and it probably just shows you like how important Latu was to the team because we were looking so good in attack when like he was there, and then when he left, like it was a noticeable difference in drop in quality.
Yeah.
He's our starting halfback at the moment, and you look at what happened to Melbourne when Hughes came back. They rushed him back for the last round. He went out, and they just were way off the pace. And I know that there's a series of reasons behind that, but 19-year-old or not, we lost our halfback. And I think that is getting missed. And at that point, was it not 28-12 at that point when Latu went down? I mean, in a lot of ways, it seemed like they might have, tucked and run from that point on. But yeah, it's a significant moment, I think. The other thing as well, actually, on what you just mentioned a second ago about Heath is Heath looked to me, honestly, and you're talking about his demeanor, Declan, when you're talking about him on the field there, he looked to me scared. He looked like Latu looked 2 months ago when he was playing robotically and looked a bit clunky and like he was doubting himself. That's what Heath looked like to me on the weekend. Now, I don't know, what has become of that or where that's come from, but Latu found himself having a rest off the back of that. And, I think since he's refound his form, it was really obvious to see Heath stepping into that role, not being confident of what he should be doing, where he should be placed, the decisions he should be making, or when he should run or pass. Or so partial concern, yes, but I think it's something that needs to inform coaching heading into the off season. Is we need to have the capacity to be able to exchange players left, right, and centre as needed and still not lose that cohesiveness, because that was a big thing.
I just had a quick check at the stats, Zach. I think Latu came off when the score was 28-18, but we were well and truly, we were already getting a bit scared from the Titans. They were starting to hit back and we were giving them enough ball. But another thing too, it's very, very easy to say in hindsight, but it would have been nice to have Jack Bird off the bench yesterday. I think his experience in the halves and just experience in big games probably would have helped, Jerome, steer the ship a little bit the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, good point, Nick. It appears to me kind of like that. I might be wrong. I might be just talking through my hat here, but that Jack's getting the David Clemmer treatment and sort of just not being not being invited to the party anymore. That seems to be the way the season ended for Jack Bird. So yeah, he might have been a contributor off that bench. Some of those other stats, 83% completion, which was pretty good. Our completion rate better than the Titans. They made a lot of mistakes. We didn't make as many run meters as them, 1484 to their 1679. Post-contact meters, 499 for us, 486 for them. They made 9 late line breaks. We made 3. We made 40 missed tackles. They made 36. They made 14 errors. We made 9. Macassini, 161 metres off 19 runs. Terrell, 17 runs, 137 metres. Pole, 12 runs for 118. And Hunt, 10 runs for 108. And as I said, the Sione Fainu, that 9 missed tackles. Appy made 6 missed tackles, Declan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we did look really good with the ball. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Like we looked good with the ball and when we had momentum, but then we didn't really back it up with the tough stuff. I mean, I think we did a really good job on Keanu Kenny the first maybe like 10, 20 minutes. I think we were really getting up in his face, taking like away his space and then driving him back because he's a smaller body. And then we really took advantage of his height with that Billy try, which was just a great example of what you need to do with these smaller fullbacks. But then it's like the game went on further. We started making more missed tackles, not getting up, not driving them back. And then Kenny just tore us apart. Like I think I've just got this image of him just stepping on the inside of it. I think it was Twal. I think it was Seyfarth and then Twal, and they just both gave like the hand, like classic like arm grab tackle, and then like he made a break, and I think they scored. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they kind of like beat us and like the meters and the attacking stats, because they were really running downhill. And then Campbell as well, who's just a brilliant player playing off the cuff against like a fractured defensive line, and he was great as well. So yeah, it's just disappointing because like we should have won, but we really played into their hands.
If AJ Brimson could play the West Tigers every week, he'd be the next immortal. He always brings his A game to play the West Tigers, which is really frustrating. Seyfarth started Pole off the bench. There's no doubt that Benji has a man crush on Seyfarth. There's just no doubt about that. Like it just continues to be proven week after week. But to his credit, a couple of really good, important tackles from Seyfarth, but he also had his moment. Pole had his moment as well. You seem to get that from those two guys every single week. But I wanted to single out Taylor May and some of his defensive efforts. Some really impressive try-saving scores. Yeah, just had another brilliant game, which was fantastic. I mean, we scored 5 tries in that first half. I don't think we've played a better half of football, really, even though the Titans did get back into it there when they got more ball. But at halftime, I'm thinking to myself, we've turned a corner. We're on the way. We're going to have a better season next year. And then 40 minutes later, to feel so deflated, and that is the life of the West Tigers fan. For you, Nick, Royce Hunt, does that performance change where Royce stands at the club? Forgetting the 2 tries, but it was the actual first time in a while that he's really contributed and carried the ball with venom. And, he has been sort of on the outer. It looks like, we need him to make a contribution next year. And if he can perform like that, then, he's exactly what we need coming off the bench.
Yeah, 100%. I know Royce had a couple of different stints. I think he came on just short of the halftime siren and then he came on after. Then I think he went off with an HIA and came back on again. Looking at Tiger's website, it's got that he did run or he played 25 minutes, which is probably fairly decent numbers for Big Royce. But I know during the commentary, I was watching that on KO that the comments were it all comes down to his preseason. And
Mm.
surely we can get, I know he's a big boy, but surely we can get him fitted during the preseason to punch out 30 plus minutes. He doesn't have to play half a game, but and yes, he did come on and provide a lot of impact, which is what we need and what we've been lacking a lot of this back half of the year. But we need that more. We need it more often. The tries were great. The first one he scored was hilarious because he was getting up ready to play the ball. He had
Yeah,
no idea
yeah.
that he'd rolled over and the ball had touched the line. But yeah, good to see him get a couple of tries. But I don't know what his future holds either because I know that there was talk about him being potentially shopped around.
Mm.
Well, that and then I guess that question mark you can put over it too in the press conference. Benji made a comment about Royce Hunt and said that he's contracted for the next 2 years. And any time a player,
Mm.
coach or someone from the board, or the team come in and say someone's contracted for another couple of years,
Yeah,
they're
it's
dead
not a
men
good
walking.
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Royce, I don't know. I think the red flags are all still there, to be honest. I know he scored those 2 tries and he did look good when he had the ball. But just before he went off for that HIA, he was jogging and he was gassing, he was running on sand. I actually didn't even think that he was concussed. I think like they just managed to like maybe like through the dark arts, like said he had a concussion and then used him
Mm.
as a sub. But I just thought he looked gassed and that's why he came off because he was like really like struggling to get back on side. And I just think that you can't carry a prop like that, especially when you're a team like us who aren't elite defensively anyway, because then where we can't really hide him amongst like other great defenders. And yeah, I'm not sure. Like even if he does have that kind of impact and attack, if he's going to play like that defensively, then it's going to
Mm.
undo everything. So I would still be kind of keen to explore other options for next season if we can sign a replacement.
Interesting thing about that, Declan, that I noticed is they scored a handful of tries from either directly through the middle or from collapsing that middle. But it wasn't when Royce was on the field. It was when Terrell and specifically Appy on 2 separate occasions were really, really lazy covering the
Mm.
inside. Really like proper poor. And, we spoke about Sione as well, missing 9, 2 ineffective. He pushed to the middle for a significant amount of time, tackled at 70%. That's pretty abhorrent. Terrell probably had his worst defensive game as well. So, for all that we talk about with Royce and his, noted issues around the middle, particularly as he undergoes fatigue, we basically just yesterday showed that we could be quite sloppy when we don't have our game faces on, regardless of Royce or not, with, some of what we would consider probably our glue around the middle. I think at certain points you could see Twoll, they were itching to get Twoll back in the middle there
Mm.
to try to arrest that because yeah, it was more of a case of who we had in that sort of maybe first 20 after half time in place that we just our middle felt a bit. And yeah, that was without, I guess, Royce, because I think Royce went off in maybe only 8 minutes or so in the second half.
Mm.
It wasn't long.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Twal. He did his usual lots of tidy up work in the middle, goes unnoticed. I thought Latu had a good game. I thought Luai had a good game. Yeah, but I
So do I.
thought what I liked about Latu's game is that he was mixing it up and I know I'm a broken record about that, but he was mixing it up between distributing and running, and that's the best Latu. So that was really good to see.
Kicking game was good too. He put that
Kick,
one on the point for Samuela from memory. So
yeah, kicking game was better. There was just the one kick that was too long, but other than that, I thought both boys' kicking game was better than it has been the last few weeks. Declan nearly said HSC when he was talking about HIA, which leads us into Hamasi Makasini. His debut took him 13 minutes to score on that left edge. I kept thinking to myself, Nick, when did we sign Joseph Suoli? Because it looked just like him.
Yeah, he plays with a lot of class, doesn't he, for a young fella? And the commentators were loving him. Al Meninga at halftime was, I think, I don't know how many touches Marcy had by halftime, but he was talking him up, saying what a huge future he's got. But yeah, he's very classy, probably a little bit. I know they're different builds, but similar for me the way Taylor Mate plays, just plays with a lot of finesse and makes everything look quite easy.
Mm,
Makes everything look very comfortable. But yeah, the way Marcy runs, he's big and strong and only 18. He's obviously still got a lot of physical development left in him, but he's got a huge future. So yeah, like I said earlier, I can't wait to watch him next season. Be interesting to see if he walks into that NRL team round one or whether he plays a bit
mm.
of reserves. But from what I saw, I think he's too good to play reserve grade.
Mm. Zach, you know, it was the debut we were probably expecting. He didn't let us down at all. Actually, made more meters than anybody else in the team, and didn't look out of place. It was probably one of the best West Tigers debuts for a while.
it was nice because it wasn't full of a whole bunch of highlight reels to
Mm,
prove that point either. He scored a try, but he was on the end of it and he got the job done, but it wasn't exactly the toughest of put downs, but thrilled for him nonetheless. The fact that he got through his work in a very nonchalant way, and I love seeing the fact that he showed exactly what he showed all through the juniors, which is he goes after work. And Nick mentioned a moment ago, he wasn't sure how many touches he'd had in that first half. He'd had at least 10 or 11 runs
mm.
in that first half alone. I remember them mentioning it after the half an hour mark. He went looking for work. You can see there in the run meters, he did his job. He worked well with Taylor. I think Taylor was a good person to have inside of him. But in what we're talking the start of March next year, that's another 6 months. And
Mm.
for an 18-year-old young man, that's a lot
It's a
of
lot of
development.
development. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of growth and a full preseason. I'm yeah, not off the back of one game, but I think that we might find an interesting bit of a shuffle go on, and we're going to have to play chess pieces with Giral due in there somewhere as well, possibly. So alluded to it earlier, but yeah, very very pleasing debut, and yeah, just yeah, not surprising at all from what I'd seen of Marcy before that. So.
I know, Zach, we only played against Gold Coast. And I'm going to say we only played against the Gold Coast, and yes, they beat us. But it's, they were very close to taking home the wooden spoon yesterday. But Marcy didn't get targeted, and he's an 18-year-old kid playing his first NRL game, and he wasn't targeted. Or if he did, it didn't show any. He didn't show any weakness or any brittleness at all in his game. So I was really impressed with how he handled the situation, the game. I know that his teammates around him did everything they could to to have his back, but he's already got that physique. He's big enough frame to handle himself against men. So big future.
And he will. He'll have tests, mate. Like the moment that he gets named in the side more consistently next year, whenever that point might be, they're going to bomb the hell out of him. Teams will do it until they realise that he's got incredible hands and can leap quite high, and they won't do it anymore. But
Mm.
it's just what happens. You're going to get targeted. Look, I think that if our right side could tackle, he might have been targeted a little bit
Yeah.
more. But when you got an orchard over this side, you don't go foraging through the bush. So
Mm.
yeah, no, yeah, great job.
Yeah, I'm loving the prospect of that left side, Declan. I think that's if we can get that right side going a little bit better, then I think the back line is, as I say every week, the back line's pretty much done. Just going back to that earlier point where you've kind of probably got to get Makasini in there somewhere. You've got Taruva, you've got Skelton. It's looking pretty good out in the backs.
Yeah, I think with Makasini, the best thing for me was that he never cracked under the pressure, even when we were under the pump. Like he never made like any mistakes. I think there was one time where he dropped the ball backwards, but that was probably have a wild pass in our own kind of 20, so I don't really blame him for that. But yeah, it's just brilliant. And as Nick said, it was only against the Titans, but you just got the sense that there was a bit of X factor about him.
Mm.
That like Jarrell Skelton doesn't necessarily have. Like obviously Skelton's a good winger. He's a first grade winger for sure. And he gets through a lot of work and he's really reliable. But you could kind of see Macassini kind of develop into a real game breaker where he could make something out of nothing. I saw like a little bit of Selwyn Cobble in him. Like when he gets the ball, he can make something out of nothing that I'm not sure that Skelton has. And to go into next season, I would probably start with Skelton just because he's got more experience. But I think as the season goes on, I think that's the position I could definitely see Macassini breaking into that first grade team as that left side wing position because like just the sky's the limit for him. And yeah, I'll be worried when he comes off contract because I think there's going to be a lot of interest from Union as well as league teams.
So I just thought of an unconventional solution to our right side woes, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I just thought of this while you were talking there, Declan. So our left side is very strong, right? And as you were saying, Zach, a lot of teams are struggling to get through that side. Why don't we stack our left side even more? Let's move Taruva over that side. We'll put Skelton over that side. Get rid of Toa. We'll move Alex Twal out to the right side. He can defend out there. We'll can play completely imbalanced back line and forward pack, and opposition players won't be able to get through either side. Problem solved.
I think we've worked out why Nick will never be the coach.
Pigs on the right and Axe on the left. Sounds like under eights back in the day, mate. I think there's a few things to play around with that as well. But this is going to sound really odd. I like experimenting. I think Giral could play anywhere from centre to back row as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't gone completely off the deep end and aired those thoughts as of yet on the airwaves around the place, but I think he's got the skill set to do that. Because if I have a look at those three wingers that we've mentioned, and we can't forget that Luke Lelalea is quietly building a little resume down low as well, who is a game breaker himself. But we've seen Giral completely turn. Who was it? Who did he turn inside out in that last game we played? I can't remember, but try out of nothing. We've seen what Tito can do, and obviously we know what Marcy is and will be capable of. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting jigsaw, as we've already said.
I mean, when I played, I was just a big dumb middle forward, so I don't really know this. But in terms of like center transition, like is it that big of an ask that Macassini could transition to the right side? Like, is it just like his spin is stronger on the left? So that's probably naturally why he's on that side. But is that something that he could develop in a preseason, the ability to play the edge, or would that just take away from his natural ability too much?
I played centre. I played on the right, and I'm right-handed. So it depends. I think it depends a lot on the individual in a lot of ways. You can see some centres that can jump from side to side. He's certainly versatile, and I think in Union he's played both inside and outside centre, which means you do play both sides as well as on the wing. So he's a versatile footballer because he's an athlete first and foremost. I know, Swatali, that was one of his strengths, right? The versatility simply through being an athletic footballer. But yeah, look, Marcy's predominantly left coming through as far as my information is. Really strong fend. He's got a quick show and go, and he's got quite a handy flick out of his left as well that he's been able to pull off pretty well to his wingers on a number of occasions. You do get used to bracing for contact as well, and you get used to sort of your angles and lines. It's not to say that you can't relearn it. Look, Taylor to me is almost that complete a footballer that if anybody has the capacity to shift sides in the centres, it would be Taylor May. But then it's a case of saying, well, he's probably the best club we've had, best centre we've had in the club at the moment since peak Rowdy, if not, I don't want to say better, but and do you want to change that? So, look, the good thing I think, boys, is that we've got an issue in the 3/4 line in terms of working out who the best fit is, and we're not trying to seafarth our way into the second row like we did this year. So it's probably a good problem to have, I'd say.
The other option too is you could put Taruva at right centre. He's played centre before as well, so maybe that's an option as well. If that's the way that it plays out, hopefully Stafford Toa gets surgery or gets rehabilitated and he's back to his best, and we're just having this conversation in a different format, which is kind of like how knowing that we've got to squeeze one of those guys in somewhere. It's a good luxury to have, and yeah, Luke Lilly gets a little bit forgotten, but he's looked better and better. Speaking of young players, I'm going to have a chat to the guys from West Tigers Faithful. Their pod, they do a lot of work and a lot of coverage of the young players. And I was chatting to them. They were saying that there's more than 10 really good prospects coming through. So we're going to have to talk about who those next generation players are coming through that we should be excited about. I thought I would ask a couple of quick fire questions here to finish off this edition of the West Tigers podcast. Declan, are we better off than we were 12 months ago as a club?
Yes, I think so. I think we're like in terms of the I can see the long term direction of the club a lot better. Obviously, this time 12 months ago, like we all kind of like were hoping that Galvin would like be part of that future. But now I think the kind of path forward is much more clear in terms of like what we're good at, what we're bad at, like what we need to address, and we're not kind of starting from square one. We're starting from a few like one or two or three gears into it. So although we're not the finished product, I think our like future is definitely a lot more certain. And I think it shows like I think there's more confidence in Benji Marshall as well
Mm.
that he can improve the team because we've seen a lot more improvement than we've seen in recent years as well. So for that reason, I'm going to say, yeah, our future's looking better.
Nick, we missed the finals once again. We lost in the last round, sort of typical West Tigers, but going into an off season, it looks the most settled we've looked for quite a while.
It does. I guess touching back on a little bit of what Declan was talking about, though, as well, 12 months ago, I know I was looking forward to a recruitment change, and we
Mm.
had several key signings coming across, whereas at this point, looking towards 2026, we're probably a little bit thinner compared to who's coming in. So, um, yeah, I think we've definitely settled. We've just spoken about how strong our backline is and the potential headaches that Benji's going to have, especially around who's going to play left center or who's going to fill in that spot out in the right to strengthen us up a bit. But there's still some question marks around the forward pack and especially question marks around bench for me because I know that we haven't had much punch come off the bench and that's definitely where we've been lacking in games.
Mm.
And I know that we've been lucky in terms of injuries across the season. And I think if we had have been playing next week, I'd be asking the question who's playing halfback and who's playing 5'8",
Mm.
especially with Latu being injured. So still a lot of question marks for me in regards to depth. I still think we need to do some movement in the off season. I don't know who might fall out of a tree if anyone's out there shaking them, but we definitely need some new additions coming in just to tighten us up a little bit around
Mm.
the middle.
It was a great off season last year getting Terrell May, Zach. We kind of need to if we go with what we've got at the moment, I'm a little bit worried. But if we can strengthen those couple of spots, I'm feeling a lot more confident. Is that where you would ascertain as being in a better spot than we were a year ago?
Oh, unequivocally, in so many areas. Cap, we're better. The core of the side is better. We aren't spending $1.2 million on an overrated teenager.
Mm.
I think that we've got some clarity around what the club, the squad, the home games, the venues. We've got clarity around the club at large and from a squad perspective as well. We can see that a lot of the older past regime contracts have mostly found their way out the door by now. And even the ones that didn't work out, they're not hanging around. Olam's been moved on, Clemmer's been moved on, and you go back
Mm.
further to Bateman and the likes. We do have that youthful sort of wave coming through, but again, will be another season under our belt. These combinations will build further and further. So I think we're really well placed. I don't think we could have gone much lower and still had a smile on our face. However, the
Mm.
fact we escaped the bottom four, and I don't particularly think played very well this year, to be honest with you. I've said that a few times over the course of the season. I thought we actually didn't really play to our potential, and there's a number of reasons for that. So overall, we're placed pretty well. And two things. Firstly, it was criminal we didn't mention Sam Wellafaina, who had a cracking game earlier,
True. Yep.
before I move on. The other thing is, look, the Penrith finished on 13 wins.
Mm.
We finished on 9. And I think we can all agree we probably bottled about 3 or 4 games minimum this year.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, proper bottled. So, it was a case of I think the Warriors won way more games than they should have this year in close ones. And I think we probably, along with maybe a couple of other teams, lost a handful of games we probably should have won too. So
Mm.
overall, yeah, going in the right directions. And it's hard to find too many negatives despite
Yeah.
the results in the last, 2 or 3 weeks.
Which makes it, when you look at it through in that context, very hard to answer my last question. Success or failure, 2025, Declan?
Um, I'm going to say, can I sit on the fence or do I need
I
to?
think it's a perfect situation to sit on the fence because you can't. I don't think anybody could make an argument that it was either a success or a failure. Do you other boys
Yeah,
agree?
I think it's a C. Like if we're gonna grade it,
Mm.
if I throw out your grading system,
Yeah.
like from A, B, C, D, I think it was a classic C where like you probably if we all had True Serum at the start of the year and you said, oh, would you finish third? Would you realistically take that as opposed to finishing with the spoon,
Mm.
as like so many people said we would. I think we honestly probably take that. So with that being said, I think you would say it would be a C for sure.
If you said it, I think a lot of people, Declan, would also say, no, that sounds awful. I want more. But if you also then added the fact that, there's going to be a massive fallout with the Lockie Galvin saga, he'll leave mid-season.
Mm.
We're going to lose Olam, who never recovers. It was going to be one of our starting centres at the start of the year. We're going to have issues around Jarrell for points in the year. We're going to have Latu out for periods. We're going to have Buller out for periods. We're going to have Toa out for periods. If you had have maybe layered those things on top, then maybe 13th in some ways, given our base is not all that much of a failure.
Mm.
You could argue either way, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. What about for you, Nick? More towards success, more towards failure?
Look, I'm probably sitting on the fence with Declan, to be honest. I just hope it's not a picket fence because I get a sore butt. But
Splinters.
yeah, look, yeah, that's right. But look, yeah, Zach, you made a good point. I completely forgot about Justin Owen because he was that potential centre that we've now got in Taylor and May that we should have had from the start. So he would have added that starch from the beginning and probably made that edge, what it is now, for the entirety of the season. Lachlan Galvin leaving, for the first half of the season was huge as well. That was a massive shifter in the way that we played, the whole, the whole effects, the knock-on effect it had throughout the whole club. It took a good 6 or so weeks for us to really move on from that and play some, a different brand of footy without him. But it's probably helped us find our feet a bit and maybe figure out our identity a bit more without Galvin, because I don't think Jerome knew what he was doing when Lockie was there. He was just feeding the ball to this whiz kid and letting Galvin do whatever he wanted. But he's gone now. I hope the Bulldogs go out in straight sets, and I think they might in the finals. Be lovely to see. But yeah, as for West Tigers, like I tipped this to come 7th, but from memory, I also tipped Canberra to come last. So I've had an absolute shocker there. You can't get any more polar opposite to to what's actually happened. So look, I'm glad we didn't come last, Joel. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Happy there's no spoon.
That's a celebration in itself. Yeah. All right. Well, the podcast will continue over the off season. There's always plenty to talk about. Hopefully, not quite as much as there was to talk about last off season, but there will always be things happening around the West Tigers. We've also got to talk about Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, that type of thing. Best win. So we'll do that in the next little bit. So yeah, stay tuned for the West Tigers podcast. Thank you, boys. Unfortunately, so frustrating to finish on that loss, but we just got to have to suck it up and continue on. Thanks a lot.
6 months of peace. I'm looking forward to the hiatus.
Exactly.